prolongation cost claim. As a result of prolonged events, the contractor has been forced to maintain a commitment to the contract and extended presence on site management, supervisors, etc. For longer than imagined, contract and extended presence on site management, supervisors, etc. For longer than imagined, the contractor has exposed to substantial additional cost and claims for its subcontractors. Entitlement to compensation arise under the contract. The cost of prolongation will include the following: 1. On-head costs, 2. Head office overheads costs, 3. Finance costs, 4. Inflation and escalation and fluctuation costs, 5. Loss of profit/opportunity costs, 6. Subcontractor claims. On-site overhead costs: labor lockers, toilets, offices, and flags. The extra cost of safety, guarding. Staff and supervision cost, net salary excluding miscellaneous expenses. Staff and supervision cost, miscellaneous expenses gratuity, airfare expenses gratuity, airfare, yearly paid leaves and medical insurance. Direct labor cost based on daily progress reports. Plant and equipment cost. Site services and facilities including power, water, air, telephone, stationery, pantry consumptions, etc. Occurred in photocopying and producing new shop drawings. Upgradation of software as per latest requirements. Dust control on site and temporary controls. To head office overheads costs. Head office overheads formulas, on the basis that the workforce might have had the opportunity of being employed on another contract which would have had the effect of funding the overheads during the overrun period. Eichleay formula, Hamden formula, Hudson formula. Hudson formula. H5 recoverable overhead equals H1 by H2 by for over H3 H1, allowance % in tender for overhead H2, original contract price less advance payment H3, original contract period days. H4, period of delay caused by the employer solely days. It was accepted in several court cases, but all of them occurred many years ago. More recently, the formula has been criticized for head office overhead percentage from the contract as the factor to calculate those costs that may bear little or no relation to the actual head office overhead costs for the contractor during the extended delay period. Hamden's formula. In order to try to improve Hudson's formula, their formula emerged from the book, Hamden's Building Contracts and Practice. This was Hamden's formula. Unlike Hudson's formula, Hamden's formula has the advantage of extracting the contractor's actual head office overhead percentage from the audited account S of the contractors to assess the head office overhead costs. Thus, received plenty of recent judiciary support. Find Hamden's formula quite useful and have used it in several of my assessments of the head office overhead of the prolongation costs, provided that the contractor could prove a loss of head office overhead and or profits due to a delay by the employer. Hamden arrived at this result by dividing the total overhead cost of the contractor's organization as a whole by the total amount of turnover in the audited accounts. Eichleay's formula. Someone may argue that if the loss of overhead cannot be proved, then both of the above formulae cannot be used. I am of the opinion that this is quite right. As a result, formula below may be used to assess the head office overhead under this scenario, which someone claims is likely based on actual costs instead. This formula fairly and reasonably assesses the head office overhead, since it compares the value of the works carried out in the contract for the project, for which the contractor claimed the prolongation cost, to the total value of the works carried out by the contractor as a whole during the above contract period. Usually, the consultant quantity surveyor can advise on the value of the works carried out in the contract from, say, the final account prepared to claim the prolongation cost, whilst both the total value of the works for the company and the total head office overhead can be found in the contractor's audited accounts. Moreover, the audited accounts of the contractors referred to should be included at least 1 year, preferably 2 years before, and include the contract period for that particular 3. Finance. Include the following: extension of performance bond, extension to advance payment bond, extension to retention bond, extension to insurance of works, extension of warranty period. Losses due to unutilized financing loans and unutilized letter of guarantees. For inflation and escalation costs on construction projects can easily escalate, especially in busy times. The best approach to treat the risk will differ from case to case. Cost fluctuation results when changes occur to the price of specific goods or services over a period of time. Cost escalation risk is simply associated with upward cost fluctuation. Many factors cause costs to escalate. It may be a result of inflation, market volatility, labor and skill shortages, construction congestion and demand. The Christchurch rebuild is a good example of these factors combining to dramatically increase cost escalation risk. The cost escalation is important because it can impact on the profitability of contractors, ability of owners to fund project completion, affordability for consumers and end users. 5. Loss of profit/opportunity costs. The construction experts are most often asked to determine lost profits on the construction contract and in the process of litigation between the client and the contractor. Profit fulfills important tasks. It is a criterion for deciding on the economy of a company. It is a tool for accumulating and creating funds for the development of the company. It is the basis of redistribution between the business and the state. It motivates every entrepreneur. The amount of profit depends on the strategy of the company, the market environment and the competitiveness of the company in the market. Reasonable profit is the minimum profit that the company will ensure the development of its production program, its own existence and good prosperity. Disputes over the payment of a relatively lower value of lost profits have been resolved by lawsuits for several years. 6. Subcontractor claims. Subcontractor claims happen when those subcontractor claims are prompted by owner action. Contractor must always be vigilant to plan for and work to avoid a two-front war in which the general contractor is pushing the owner for recovery while at the same time disputing the subcontractor's entitlement. Cooperation between the general contractor and the subcontractor and avoiding that two-front war can be accomplished through pass-through claims and ideally liquidating agreements. A pass-through claim is a claim by the subcontractor who has suffered damages by the owner with whom it has no contract, presented by the general contractor. A liquidating agreement for subcontract liquidating language goes a step further than simply a pass-through claim by liquidating the general contractor's liability for the subcontractor's claim, limiting the general contractor's liability to the value recovered against the owner. The distinction between pass-through claims generally and use of liquidating agreements. Pass-through subcontractor claims are routine in construction and an important, common-sense approach to deal with ever-present changes and the unexpected that can have cost and time implications. Despite the common-sense basis for subcontractor pass-through considerations that must be addressed, and critical planning required, starting with the subcontract clauses. The tendered allowances have limited relevance for the evaluation of the costs of prolongation and disruption caused by breach of contract or any other cause that requires the evaluation of additional costs. The tendered allowances may be relevant as a baseline for the evaluation of prolongation and disruption caused by variations. For prolongation or disruption compensation based on actual cost or loss and/or expense, the tendered allowances are not relevant because the contractor is entitled to its actual costs of the prolongation or disruption. It is a common misunderstanding in the construction industry that if the contractor has made no or inadequate allowance for site overheads in its tender, then the fact limits for removes its entitlement to compensation for prolongation and/or disruption where the basis of recovery is actual cost incurred. This is not correct. Under these circumstances, recoverable compensation requires the ascertainment of the actual cost of remaining on site for the additional time. The tendered allowances may be a useful reference point for the evaluation of prolongation and disruption caused by a variation, where the different conditions or circumstances under which the